last night, with the help of my online friend, Monica Turner, who's another content creator, as well as my entire community who has been watching and rewatching Stranger Things and picking up on stuff, we have solved one of the biggest mysteries and potentially predicted the ending of Stranger Things. And I'm going to come to you with video clips and evidence so that we can all be in on it together. My name is Samantha. I'm the owner and artist at Little Small & Co. I make art like this, but I also am an educator. I do workshops. I have an artisan collective. And ever since a video of mine went viral in September of this year, I am now also a content creator. Right now, we're deep into talking about Stranger Things. Here's what we have going on. When we are first introduced to Sarah Hopper, she is about 4 years old, running through a park with her mother and her father. Her mother, Diane Hopper, and her father, Jim Hopper. All of a sudden, she starts to experience some form of respiratory distress. Let's take a look at it. Flare. Lens flare.
Hey, you alright? What's going on? I don't know. Hey, you alright? Oh, relax. Honey, just breathe. Breathe. In and out. Slow.
At first, she reacts like the typical person having some sort of a respiratory episode. Usually when it happens, you tend to put your head down and sort of focus on your breathing, or you tend to put your head back to try to open up your airways. But shortly after she does this, she starts looking around as if she is seeing something or someone that no one else in that scene, and we, the audience, can see. In the very next clip where we see Sarah, she's now in some sort of a hospital bed. She is bald. She's a little bit older. Her dad is reading a book to her while her little stuffed tiger is sitting next to her. And her mother is sitting on the other side of the bed as they're reading a book. After that, you see Jim Hopper sitting in a stairwell crying. That stairwell is the same stairwell in Hawkins' lab. It is the same stairwell that we see Dr. Owens in later on. It is the same stairwell that was melting for Dustin and Steve in Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2, in the Upside Down, and the same stairwell that Max and Jonathan were in. It is the same stairwell. Stick with me. The next thing we see with Sarah is her vital signs crashing. She has some sort of a breathing tube. They're pounding on her chest, and she flatlines. But the callback, the flashback, if you've ever walked through grief, you know that there is a sequential nature to it, but that it varies a bit as you get further and further away from the situation and you begin to move through your grief. You begin to recall things that you perhaps did not recall initially. So why is it always the same? We never get an additional scene. We never get more context. Now, we know that Hopper's wife, Diane, moves away and starts a new life with somebody else and a new family, because when they're on the phone, we hear a baby cry. But for some reason, Hopper stays. Sure, he's chief of police. Sure, it's his hometown. But Hopper is always acting like something's missing. And in the beginning of the series, he deals with it with various substances that are not great for him. But then once he realizes that his suspicions, whatever they may be, have legs, he kind of sobers up and starts to really dig in his heels. I have been saying for weeks now that Hopper is a double agent, that Hopper knows more. Allow me to continue. We are then introduced to 11, and by proxy, we are introduced to Terry Ives. Terry Ives is Jane Ives's mother. And up until this point, we are made to believe that 11 is Jane Ives. She's not. When she shows up to Aunt Becky's house, Aunt Becky is acting weird. We've discussed this. 11 immediately goes in to try to talk to Mama. It's not working. Mama's in a comatose state. Terry Ives, a comatose state. More or less. A vegetative state, pardon me. She then goes into the kitchen with Aunt Becky, talks a little bit about what's been going on with Mama, does not answer much about, well, where have you been this whole time? Whatever. The lights start flickering. She goes in. She says, it's Mama. She knows I'm here. She wants to talk. Plops down. Blindfold. Static on the TV. Bloody nose. Suddenly we're in the void. Terry Ives. Nightgown, cardigan. Sitting there. Jane walks over to her. 11 walks over to her. Mama? Mama, it's me, Jane. I'm home. Suddenly, Terry Ives snaps out of her vegetative state and goes, no, grabs her arm and starts to show her. Much like Hopper's flashbacks, Terry Ives's are very similar. Fine. But here's where it gets juicy. Terry gives birth. She hears the baby cry. Dr. Brenner is there to receive her child. Henry/1/Vecna/Mr. Whatsit is there, just to Dr. Brenner's left. He's in the room. All of a sudden, she blacks out. She wakes up. Aunt Becky is sitting there. The first thing she sees is a sunflower. Where's Jane? Where's the baby? I'm so sorry. You lost the baby. No, I didn't. No, she was a stillborn. No, I heard her cry. Terry leaves the hospital, goes home. She's doing research, realizes that there is some crazy stuff going on at the lab, and that even though, yes, she initially agreed to be a part of these different experiments and trials, that it is now affecting children. She didn't know that she was pregnant when she began the trials. She goes to her safe. She grabs her. She goes to the lab. She sneaks in. She's walking around, looking. Jane. Finally, she sees a rainbow outside of a door. Watch this with me. Sorry about the lighting. Brenner. Sunflower.
Hey there.
Suspicious.
Jane. Heard it. He was there. Right.
Watch this. Two girls. Now, because I'm recording this, it's not showing you the right perspective, but let me explain to you. From Terry's point of view, she walks into the room. There's two little girls, a little blonde Caucasian girl on her left and a beautiful little brown girl with brunette hair on her right. Now, because of our own racial prejudices, we always assumed that she was going after the little Caucasian girl. She wasn't. she was going after. She was going after the little brunette girl. Again, from Terry's point of view, she opens the door. Blonde girl, brunette girl. Jane! We see her very clearly. You can watch the clip for yourself from your own perspective. Jane! Callie is Jane Ives. And that little girl, that little Caucasian girl that was in the room with her, is Sarah Hopper, a.k.a. 11. Stick with me. I understand. But there was that article. There was that article about that girl who looked just like 8, who was kidnapped from England. Fake. But when 11 showed up at Aunt Becky and her mom's house and told Aunt Becky who she was, Becky was confused. Becky was acting weird. I understand you're not expecting. But Aunt Becky knew that Jane was going to be half, I'm not sure, is she Indian, is she Bangladeshi, I'm not sure. She knew that Jane was not going to be a little blonde, dirty blonde, Caucasian girl. But then Aunt Becky brings her to Mama, realizing she's not going to get much out of it, brings her into the kitchen and is trying to pull information out of her. Jane, 11, isn't giving it to her. The lights start flickering. She goes into the living room. She blindfolds herself and does the whole thing. That's when Becky realizes, oh shit, this girl really is from the lab. She's not Jane. I'm not going to say anything, but she is who we have been waiting for. Why do I say we? Aunt Becky is a plant. Sure, Aunt Becky might really be Aunt Becky. That might really be Terry's sister, so on and so on. Maybe she understands the breadth and the brevity of what's been going on with the lab. Maybe she doesn't, but either way, she has decided to side with either the lab or with Hopper, rather than try to protect her niece, whomever she may be. Because the next thing we know, Aunt Becky is on the horn. Yeah, she just showed up here. She's, blah, 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 blah. 11 realizes that Aunt Becky is not a friend, that she is a foe. So she hightails it out of there. Additionally, how did we get here? Let me explain. We know that Hopper is former military. We know that he is special ops. And in order to be special ops, he was involved with Agent Orange. You need to have security clearance. When you have security clearance, you know things. You can never talk about them, but you know things. The only instance in which you could talk about them, inside of a closed area, of course, would be with other people who also have security clearance. When we were in the hospital with Terry Ives during her birth scene, during the scene in which she was lobotomized, we see a hand holding her head with a watch on it.
450.
It's It's hard to see, but I know there's other clips out there on the internet. But then when we see the Sarah Hopper flashback, we notice that when her mother is sitting on the bed, that she too is wearing a watch. What watch is she wearing, you say?
Asked her 1,000
Oh.
already. I suppose I had to, but how are you going to find things out if you don't ask questions?
Just the same watch that we see holding Terry Ives' head.
Just makes me feel glad.
Diane Hopper worked at the lab. Whether she was a doctor, a psychiatrist, a clinical researcher, who knows? She worked at the lab. She too had security clearance. Between herself and Hopper, they knew things. They knew things elevated above and outside of what civilians know. When their daughter Sarah was in the park and had that first experience of respiratory distress, they did what any parent did. Now, this is my theory. They did what any parent did. They brought her to the pediatrician. Pediatrician said, hey, it's fall. The air is colder. Y'all were outside playing. It might have been an asthmatic episode. Her lungs sound good. Her vitals are good. I'm really not worried about it. But then Hopper and his wife and his daughter go home and they start to talk about it. Like any concerned parent, they move through all the different things, but because of their jobs, or their previous jobs, because of their security clearance, they start to wonder if perhaps it's something more. We know that in the military, Hopper was exposed to some crazy chemicals. And we know that his wife now is in STEM in some way, shape, or form. She would not have been allowed in that room if she was just a receptionist or something like that. So they decide to use their connections and their pull to get their daughter some extra care. They bring her to Hawkins' lab. They've got a hospital there. Why not? Dr. Brenner, oh, Jim, Diane, come on in. Hi, Sarah. How are you? What brings you in today? Well, she had a bit of an episode. She's been acting scared and paranoid at home. She's saying that she's seeing things. I don't know. We brought her to the pediatrician. They didn't do much, so we were wondering if your team could just take some blood and, I don't know, maybe see what's going on. Well, sure. We'd be happy to, wouldn't we? Come with me. The minute they take her blood, they realize that she could be the key to all of this. We know, based on the stage production, as well as what we've now seen in Volume 2, that it is Henry /Vecna/1/Mr. Whatsit's blood that gave him these powers. And he gained these powers because he was exposed to the Mind Flayer's particles down in the cave, down in the mine shaft. We know that the Mind Flayer's particles come from the abyss. And if someone is able to harness the powers from the abyss, they would be able to, in turn, perform telepathy, telekinesis, the combining of the two worlds. I mean, it would just disrupt everything that we experience here in this, three-dimensional world that we live in. But what is Brenner's motivation? Well, his dad was the one that started all of this research. And when Brenner was little, his dad was exposed to these particles. And when he came back from that experience, he was totally different. Then he went out on a time travel mission, if I'm remembering this correctly, and never came back. Brenner became obsessed. What had his father discovered? Where did his father go? Why was his father so changed and so different? He made it his life's work to find out. He got the U.S. government involved, claiming, this is how we could figure out enemy strategy, but it was never that. Sure, that was part of it, but it was never really about that. It was always, for Brenner, a mission to figure out what happened to his father and why. When he took Sarah Hopper's blood, Jim Hopper's biological daughter, Jim Hopper, who at an adult age had been exposed to chemicals, which then altered and changed his DNA, enough so that it passed on to his offspring. He realized that Sarah Hopper could be the key to all of this because she had the right blood. So what happens next? We know that the lab lies. We know that the lab covers up. We know that Hawkins' lab made an exact replica dummy of Will Byers, a lifelike dummy. Computers were what they were back then. It would be very easy to fake and or manipulate vital signs. Jim's in the hallway crying. Perhaps Diane goes out in the hallway to get a coffee. And they swap Sarah Hopper out with a dummy. By the time they return to the room, she's unconscious. The vital signs. Ba-bum, 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 bum, bum. They are made to believe that their daughter had passed away. She hadn't. Well, how did she lose her? They gave her medication that made all of her hair fall out. They gave her medication to make her lethargic. This is Hawkins' lab we're talking about. So Diane Hopper moves away, starts a new life. Jim Hopper stays behind in absolute misery. And we are then introduced to a little girl named 11. Of all the children in the lab, and by the way, whenever we're in the lab and we're looking at the lineup, we never see Callie. We never see her. Where has she been? What has she been doing? All of that goes down in the lab, this, that. 11 gets out, and so begins the series of Stranger Things. But the minute Jim realized that all of this was going on, the monsters, the Demogorgon, people disappearing, the minute he went into the Upside Down, something in him changed. He came across a little stuffed lion in Castle Byers in the Upside Down. Will had a stuffed lion. Do you want to know who else had a stuffed lion? 11 in the lab. It was the one little comfort, the one little stuffed animal she was allowed. So that tells us that Will and 11 either are the same age and were gifted that lion around the same time, or that 11 gave it to him to comfort him. Because we still don't know how 11 got out of the lab that fateful night. We still aren't sure. Is there a chance that she had her lion, her little stuffed lion? The gate opens, this, that, and the other. She goes into the Upside Down. She sees Will there. She's never seen another kid there before. She gives him her lion, or 11 goes to the Upside Down. Walking around. She finds Castle Byers. She goes inside. She hears a commotion. She drops her lion and goes out to explore, at which point she sees the Demogorgon take Will. She then comes out of the Upside Down and is wandering through the woods and finds herself at Benny's. Regardless, here's what I think is going to happen. When Hopper saw that stuffed animal in the Upside Down, that was his first real example, aside from hearing about Nancy's experience regarding her ability to go into the Upside Down and then come back out. That was his first experience seeing something that was very obviously from this Earth plane ending up over there. And it reminded him of his child's tiger toy that she had. Jim has always seemed to have a bit of a monkey on his back. He's always looking over his shoulder. And yes, I understand that he's a police officer. I understand all that. And I've already made tons of videos about why he's a double agent. End of season 1, car pulls up, he turns around, he doesn't flinch. He tosses his cigarette, he takes off his hat, and he gets in the car. Cut to the end of season 3. Suddenly he's in a diner with Dr. Owens. First time we see him with Dr. Owens, he goes in to complain about the pumpkins. And Dr. Owens goes, oh, well, that's too bad. And Jim's like, screw you, man. Like, you know what this is. You told me to keep it quiet about what you guys have going on here, and I told you that I would do that under one condition, that you keep your lab stuff here. They knew each other. Then all of a sudden they meet up in the diner. Dr. Owens gives him the papers, birth certificate for Jane Hopper. Chummy. The reason that Hopper has been acting so weird throughout the series, but especially in season 5, to me anyway, it's giving someone who realizes that they have a choice in front of them. They can either, they know what's going on, they know more than they are letting on, and they can either take the side of the community members that they have been fighting alongside, or they can side with the lab in the hopes to get their daughter back. Here's what I think is going to happen. Somewhere, some way, Jim Hopper is going to come face to face with Vecna. Vecna is going to use his powers and abilities to exploit Jim's biggest sorrow, the loss of his daughter. Now that you know all that I know, you realize that anything is possible. I have the power to give and also to take. I can give you back your daughter, but only if you give me her. 11. Jim Hopper, the double agent, the traitor. Allow me to continue. No, there has to be another way. There has to be another way. And then Vecna and or Kali will make Jim see Sarah. Somewhere there. And the moment that Hopper agrees. 11 will be captured by Vecna, and Vecna will look at Jim and say, "You are a selfish, self-indulgent fool. How could you not know your own daughter?" And then we will get those scenes. The moment in the park, them bringing her to the pediatrician, them bringing her home, talking about going to the lab, bringing her to the lab, Brenner ushering her right in, the people at the lab, the nurses, the phlebotomists taking her blood, people in the lab, Dr. Brenner, I think you should come in here. They bring him in, they show him under the microscope. This is no ordinary child. She could be the missing link. Brenner has an idea. Jim, Diane, I'm sorry to say, but your daughter is very, very sick, and we need to keep her here. She needs to begin treatment immediately. The treatment, they start weakening her. They get her to lose all of her hair. They make it look like she is very, very ill, all the while, every day, taking her blood, continuing their tests. Can we manipulate? What can we do with this? Taking her blood, until finally, after a couple years of this, they realize that they have the inconclusive data they need to prove that she is the key, that she is the closest thing that they will get to Henry Creel. Not only is she basically him, but she could beat him with the right training if they can teach her and train her in telekinesis to harness her natural powers and abilities. If they could just get her in the lab, they could do all of that. She dies, and so the story goes. Now, we see Sarah Hopper getting very sick. The next time we see that little girl in that room with Kali, she is a little bit older. She looks like she's probably about 6. The first time we met Sarah Hopper, she looked like she was about 3 or 4. I'd say 4. So that's 2 years. So finally, out of the lab, Jim and Diane out of the lab. They start giving her medicine to make her well again. She could very easily be that girl that we saw in the flashback, Terry Ives' flashback. Not only will Hopper be revealed as a traitor, but he will also lose his daughter. 11, who is really Sarah Hopper. Why? When 11 went into the void with Terry, and she said, Mama, it's me, Jane. I'm here. If that was her daughter, why would she turn to her and go, no, when we know that Terry's reaction when she saw her daughter that day in the Rainbow Room was, Jane! I said it first. And Monica and our communities. Thank you.